If you are one of those students who is still facing problem to figure out that what exactly should you study in last 30 days in legal section, or you are still confused about what exactly should be your sequence when it comes to solving legal reasoning questions, or it is the timing, how much time should you take, or what exactly will be the good score. Now, if you want to know about all these things, stay in this video till the end and maybe I can help you figure out what exactly is the right course of action. So let's start the video. Hi everyone, this is Vivek, co-founder of Legalight, and in this video we are going to talk about legal. Now, this is the section which has the maximum weightage when it comes to the CLAT exam, right? So accordingly, our effort also should be maximum in order to score the maximum number of marks in this particular section. Now, what exactly should you study in this particular section? So there are so many questions that we can go into. Now what I will do is that one by one we will see, and I'll try to answer all of the possible questions that even if I was an aspirant, these questions would be something that would really seem overwhelming for me. Now let's solve all these questions one by one. Now the first question is, what exactly do you need to study in the legal section? Now, to answer each of these questions with respect to any particular section, we follow the same approach. We actually see from model test paper to sample paper 3 to 2021's paper and 2020's paper, we try to analyze what exactly are the different question types that CLAT consortium includes in the paper. Now, after analyzing the trends with respect to legal section throughout these years, we are able to properly understand that there are two types of passages which comes in CLAT exam in legal section. Now, these two types are, the first types are the passages based on core legal topics, and the second one are those passages which are based on miscellaneous topics. Now, let me properly define one by one that what exactly is a miscellaneous topic and what exactly are the passages based on core legal topics. Now, when it comes to core legal topics includes those topics which each one of you and every one of you are properly prepared for in the exam. These topics include tort law, it includes criminal law, it includes contract law, it includes constitutional law, and with respect to constitutional law, I am only talking with regard to fundamental rights provisions. Now, these all topics come together to form the core topics from which the passages are based. Now, what exactly is the weightage of core topic passages in the legal section? So what we have seen from the trends that usually 5 to 6 passages are based from these core topics. Now, how do they frame these questions? So what they do is that they might possibly take any factual story or any current news with respect to these topics, and after including these topics in the passage, they try to frame questions on that. Now, what are the different questions that could possibly be framed from core legal topics? Now, core legal topics are those topics for which I believe that all of you should be properly prepared for, because this is something that all of you have been taught, and what exactly the consortium is expecting all of you to be taught in the law coaching that you are properly based in. Even if you are doing self-preparation, you are still expected to cover at least these 4 core topics. Now, talking about the questions that could possibly be framed from these core topics, generally the questions in these topics are of two types. One, the old school legal reasoning questions, and the second one, there could possibly be, means out of 40 questions that possibly could come from this section, 2 to 3 questions might be properly based on legal knowledge. Now, when I say legal knowledge, I want to properly take your attention here that these legal knowledge questions are not the questions that are supposed to be answered or they are mentioned already in the passage. Now, CLAT consortium has this assumption that you are properly taught all these core topics, right? So they are expecting you to at least carry some of the knowledge regarding these topics which will not be properly mentioned in these passages. Now, in the passage where this question was asked from, you will see that they have not mentioned anything with regard to this. So this is something that you are expected to answer based on your own knowledge. Now, these types of questions you will not find in miscellaneous topics. Now, again, there are certain questions which are properly asked from miscellaneous passages that CLAT is not going to ask from the core legal topics. Now, moving ahead, what exactly are like miscellaneous passages? Now, miscellaneous passages are those passages for which none of the students are already prepared, right? So these could be from certain legal topics or from certain current affairs topics, some legal topics that are currently in news, and from there, this passage actually will test your legal interpretation of a certain law that is already mentioned in these passages. Now, there is one thing where I really want to draw the attention of all the law aspirants, that if you miss out on any passage or any question from these core topics, then that will create a lot of trouble for you, because this is a section where everyone is equally prepared to solve these questions, because already they know about all the legal provisions under these topics. So interpretation of these passages and application of that interpretation in those questions becomes very easy for anyone, like most of these aspirants. Now, when it comes to miscellaneous passages, now this is somewhere that everyone will be facing some new legal provisions based on some entirely different law that they are used to solving in their coaching institutes, right? So this is something that will be properly tested in the real exam, because whatever passages or whatever legal provisions that they will include in these passages would be something that no one is properly prepared for. So anybody who has an edge with respect to better comprehension or with respect to better interpretation or application of a certain legal principle will score a very good marks when it comes to miscellaneous passages. But overall, when it comes to 8 passages in legal section, expect that in CLAT 2022, again the same pattern would be repeated. That is, 5 to 6 passages would be based on core legal topics and 2 to 3 passages would be properly based from miscellaneous passages. You could be very much prepared with respect to these core topics, but when it comes to those miscellaneous passages, all I will say that if your English language section and if your logical reasoning section is very good, I believe that is enough for you to prepare for these miscellaneous passages. Next, I want to talk about that what exactly is a good score in legal reasoning section. Now, in legal reasoning section, any score between 28 to 32 is a good score, given that you are attempting all the questions in this particular section, right? So I believe that this is one of these sections where everybody is really looking forward to maximize their score. So this is one section where if you are not getting, or if your score is not near 28 to 32, I believe still there is a scope of improvement. Now, this 28 to 32 is based on the fact that how many questions you are ideally attempting in this exam. When it comes to attempt, what we have also seen that English passages and logical reasoning passages are smaller as compared to legal reasoning passages. So since legal reasoning passages are lengthy in nature, there is a choice that all of you need to make in this real exam, which is, do you really want to skip the passages or do you really want to skip the questions? Now, what you might possibly experience while giving any of these mock tests, that many a times you invest all of your time in reading the passage and then you decide that you don't have to solve these questions. I will say that in such scenario where you have already taken the risk of investing 5 to 6 minutes for solving the passage, it is your duty to properly try and take the risk of solving the questions, because other than one extreme condition where all the 5 questions that you will be attempting goes wrong, all the other case will result in either net 0 marks, or again there will be some positive marks that you will be scoring. For example, 3 correct, 2 incorrect, 2 correct, 3 incorrect, 4 wrong, 4 incorrect and 1 correct. Again, your marks is 0. only in the exceptional case wherein you are getting all the 5 questions wrong that your score will be in negative. So I believe that if you have already invested a lot of time in reading the passage, you should go ahead and take the risk, because this is one section where you need to properly create a competitive edge with respect to your interpretation and comprehension, because these passages are lengthy. Many a times I have experienced that many of the law aspirants could not properly manage their time properly in this particular section, and that is why they lose and they mess up all the remaining sections. Many of these students are used to solving legal reasoning passages in the second sequence. For example, they first start with GK. After solving GK in the very first hour, they try to complete legal reasoning. Now, this is something which is very subjective, because it totally depends upon your own strength and your own weaknesses. For someone who thinks that, legal is their strength, they might also properly prioritize to solve it even in the first hour, or given the fact that they are very much comfortable and with respect to accuracy, they are very much confident that they can also, solve these passages in the next hour. But what I seem to think is that since these passages are lengthy, and again, you need a certain kind of freshness and mental tenacity to solve and go through all these 8 passages, I believe that, you should be attempting these passages in the very first hour after any section that you randomly choose, maybe maths, maybe GK, whatever is your, favorite way of, tackling or navigating through the paper, right? But next question which comes here is, what should be the right timing? What should be the correct timing? Since you are giving mock, or since you are appearing in the sectional test, so what should be the correct, what is the right amount of time that you should spend in this section? Now, first of all, I believe that, there cannot be any fixed rule with respect to timing. But again, as a caveat, what I will like to say is that, 40 to 45 minutes is an ideal time which you should try through practice in your mocks and through your sectional tests to achieve in this particular section, given that you are attempting all the 8 passages. But again, it is entirely subjective, because it depends on the real exam. For example, let's say today is the CLAT exam. I sat for the CLAT exam, and today seems to be a bad day with me with respect to my legal reasoning. Now, in that scenario, the best thing is to let go and move on to other sections to maximize your marks, and whatever you have lost here, you will try to take that back from other sections. But let's say if that day is a very good day when it comes to legal reasoning section, then even if it crosses 45 minutes and you are seeing that you are able to properly interpret and solve questions, then maybe maximum you could go around 50 to 52 minutes. Now, why I say 50 to 52 minutes? Because if you take any time beyond 50 to 52 minutes, you will not have sufficient time for English, you will not have sufficient time for logical reasoning or any other section that you are properly going to solve after solving legal reasoning questions. And that is why many a times I see many of the aspirants coming to me and saying, consistently, sir, my English is not very good, my logical reasoning is not very good, or even my maths is completely terrible. Now, most of these times, you evaluate this based not on the fact that you were able to solve these questions or not in the exam, but you are totally seeing that how many marks you were able to score. Now, the marks that you are scoring in mock with respect to any section is totally proportional to the amount of time that you are devoting to solve those questions. For example, let's say if I only have 15 minutes to, tackle logical reasoning, or let's say English, definitely, my mind will not be that much attentive, because after solving that section, which is going to be my last section, I also have to fill up my OMR sheets. So in that amount of pressure, your score in a certain section will deteriorate. But that does not mean that you were not prepared or that section is not really good. And many a times you will see, and if you talk to the people who actually fail in this exam, or people who could not do very good in this exam, you will realize that one of the most important factor in all of these cases were that how much time did they really take for solving legal reasoning questions. So that is why legal section is very important with respect to timing, and you should have the ability to let go. Let's say if it is not working that day, so you should move ahead rather than sticking to the legal reasoning section and wasting a lot of time. many students properly try and go on, they stick with the legal reasoning section till 1 hour 15 minutes, and then they realize they don't even have enough time to solve other two sections, and in haste they properly go to English and they properly go to logical reasoning section. And obviously we all know that this is a comprehension based exam. If you are not properly focused on reading these passages, obviously you will not be able to comprehend, and your comprehension is directly proportional to the accuracy of the questions that you will be solving. So it is directly proportional. If I am not properly focused, if I am not properly attentive while reading a particular passage, then obviously my marks are going to suffer. But that is happening not due to the fact that I am weak in English or I am weak in logical reasoning. It is entirely happening because of the fact that I took more than the time that I thought that I should properly take for legal reasoning section. And since I crossed that boundary, I took 10 minutes more, or let's say 7 minutes more, or let's say 15 minutes more. That is why I did not leave a sufficient amount of time for me to properly give attention or properly solve English, logical reasoning, and maybe let's say maths. Which brings me to the next question, that what should be the correct sequence of solving these legal reasoning questions. Now, when we talk about sequence, I totally believe, it's a very subjective area where you should decide. But if I was a student, I would always try to properly solve this in the very first hour, because legal reasoning is very overwhelming. And again, I know that legal reasoning has the maximum weightage when it comes to CLAT exam. So I really want to be my best self when it comes to solving legal reasoning question. And if I am a good student, and if through mocks I know that yes, I could really achieve at least somewhere between 30 to 32 to 34 marks in this particular section, if I have properly solved and properly read and gone through all of these sections. So that way, I believe that the correct sequence, in my opinion, for anyone who is trying to achieve maximum marks would be to properly make English and logical reasoning your strength, so that you can pull these two sections along with maths in the next hour, and try that in the very first hour you are able to properly complete GK and legal. Because if you complete GK and legal, it would be how much? 40 questions in legal reasoning and again 35 questions in GK. So altogether 50% of the entire paper is already covered. So that will also take that pressure of number of questions that you have. And an ideal time you should properly be aiming is maximum time. I would say maximum time would be 1 hour 5 minutes to 1 hour 10 minutes. After 1 hour 10 minutes, if you are still stuck in legal reasoning section, I believe that that is the time to say goodbye and move ahead to the next section. Let's talk about where exactly do students face a lot of problem when it comes to legal reasoning section. So from most of the students, what I have heard, that most of the times, also for good students and also for like every student, majority of their problems are based on one thing, that power of elimination. That elimination is one thing that they are easily able to eliminate 2 answer choices out of 4. But again, with respect to the 2 answer choices, they really face a lot of problem. Now, first we need to see why exactly we are making such kinds of mistake, right? One plausible reason that I could possibly think of might be a knowledge gap when it comes to the core legal topics, because sometimes we do not have a proper understanding of a certain legal principle, or we don't have the proper interpretation of a certain legal principle, and that is why certain times what really happens that we get stuck in that particular question. Now the second place where majority of the students also face problem is that in 2 answer choices properly it is written that A is liable, and in option B also it is written that A is liable. Now the problem is that in between these 2 answer choices only one is correct. Both of these answer choices have been backed up by a certain rationale. Now both have a very logical rationale to back these 2 points, that A is rational. But out of these 2 answer choices you have to properly only opt for one, because one is the correct answer and one definitely is not a correct answer. And when you will see these questions, there is a clear line of boundary which differentiates a correct answer from a wrong answer. So majority of the times I always say students that after you have read the certain answer, when you are very sure about this fact that yes, between 2 answer choices that A is liable or A is not liable, you properly know that yes, A will be liable, but again by which logic? right? So with respect to eliminating one of those rationales that has been given, you should always have this principle in your mind that don't go for any logical explanation that is generic in nature. When I say generic, I mean that something which sounds logical, but it's a general thing. It is not something that has been clearly mentioned or expressed through the languages or through the topics mentioned in the passage. Go for certain answer choices where you might possibly find that the answer choice and the explanation, especially the language of the explanation, is properly mentioned and properly written somewhere in the passage, and it directly relates to the passage, because that is how you will understand that which is the correct answer, because most of the times we create this error. So this brings me to the end of this video. Let me again conclude all the points that you should have in your mind, that when it comes to legal reasoning sections, there could be two kinds of passages. One would be core topics, one would be miscellaneous passages. The weightage of core topic passages would be 5 to 6. The weightage of miscellaneous passages would be 2 to 3. Now, different questions are asked from these two different passages. For example, the legal knowledge questions are only asked from core legal topics, and inference-based questions or strengthening and weakening questions are only asked for miscellaneous topics. Anybody or any student should be properly prepared when it comes to, and you should definitely not miss any questions or any passages based on core legal topics. And when it comes to creating a competitive edge, you should properly give due attention to miscellaneous passages as well, because that is what nobody is prepared for. No aspirant is properly prepared for solving this miscellaneous section. So if you have an edge there, you could properly tackle these questions. When it comes to the correct timing, 42 to 45 minutes is the ideal time, and it's a very sweet spot that if you complete this section between 42 to 45 minutes, you will have ample of time in your hand to properly give due attention to other remaining sections. When it comes to what exactly should be the ideal attempt, it is totally subjective, and it totally depends upon how good of a day it is for you when it comes to legal reasoning section, and are you able to smoothly go around. And if you face that, if you're facing a lot of trouble, I believe that the best approach is to let go and maximize on other sections that are left to go. With respect to a good score, we believe that 20 to 32 is good score, right? But anyone scoring more than 32 is a very good score. But again, anyone scoring less than 25 really needs to rethink their approach about the legal reasoning section. Now, this is all that I have for this video. If I have missed on any of these topics, and if there are certain key topics that you additionally want me to discuss, then please do let me know in the comments. Now, if my videos add value to your CLAT prep, then please like my video, please subscribe my channel, and please share it between all the other law aspirants. Thank you so much, and see you all in the next video.